Lin Xia is really tired both mentally and physically. He really didn't expect this kind of thing to happen on his first day of transfer. He met a monster, was betrayed by his classmates, fought a thrilling battle, inexplicably opened his eyes, and inexplicably jumped out a Superman uncle. Sneaking away. Lin Xia is not foolish. He knows that his experience tonight will definitely involve the hidden side of this world, the monsters that eat faces, the golden light emanating from himself, and the man who alone kills monsters. That man is not an ordinary person, and from his intercom report, it can be seen that there must be a huge organization behind him, and this organization may be hidden in the world, specifically dealing with such strange events. Some secrets, once known, can no longer escape. He doesn't want to be a hero guarding humanity, what he wants to protect. He saw the light on himself and perhaps even saw the scene of himself killing monsters alone. So he wanted to drag himself into the gang. It is false to say that he is not curious about the hidden side at all. He wants to know what he has encountered tonight and what has happened to him, but he does not want to be entangled in this vortex. Due to his curiosity, the familiar mist descended once again. Only my own family. Soon, he fell asleep. On the ancient plaque on the right-hand side, there is a row of large characters engraved. The Divine Psychiatric Hospital. I and the dream. Lin Xia looked around and sighed helplessly. Are you still unwilling to let me go? Beating monsters while awake, knocking on the door when asleep, fate is hard. Lin Xia took 2 steps with ease and familiarity, and soon the outline of a mental hospital appeared before his eyes. Lin Xia grabbed the ring and looked confused. What the hell? I haven't knocked yet, why did it start shaking? Lin Xia walked to the front door and stood still, grabbing the ring behind him. Just as his fingertips touched the ring, the entire ground trembled slightly. The surrounding mist suddenly rolled over. Is it because today he opened his eyes? Lin Xia lowered her head and looked at the body in her dream, her eyes gradually brightening. Isn't it like this before? Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind like lightning. He suddenly lifted his head and looked at the door in front of him that had blocked him for 5 years, his gaze becoming even hotter. Today, maybe it can work. In the past, Lin Qia's body in dreams was semi-transparent, as fragile as a wandering mist, but today his body has noticeably solidified. Although it still lacks substance, it is no longer transparent. The ancient bell sound came from the mental hospital, several times louder than before. Fortunately, Lin Xia now has no body, otherwise his eardrums would definitely ache from the shock. The moment the bell rang, the entire mental hospital trembled violently again. He took a deep breath, tightly gripping the ring in his hand, and slammed into the door with force. Dang, 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 there's a play. Lin Qia's eyes lit up. Dang, just as Lin Xia was about to knock again, the door in front of him made a dull creaking sound and slowly moved. The door is open. Lin Xia didn't stop and knocked 3 times in a row, causing the mental hospital to shake like an earthquake. Finally, after the last knock, there was a loud noise inside the mental hospital, and then everything fell silent again. The ground of the corridor is made of unknown materials, emitting a faint fluorescence. The surrounding walls are also hung with burning light, mysterious and eerie. Lin Xia walked along this corridor and soon saw a fork in the road, with a modern signboard hanging above it. Buzz dong. After the door was fully open, an ancient and dim corridor appeared in front of Lin Xia. There are not many rooms in the activity area, but they all have multimedia rooms for watching TV and movies, rest rooms for playing chess and entertainment, study rooms for reading and learning. There is even a circular outdoor lawn inside the building, on which various sports equipment are placed. It's exactly the same. This dream is really strange. Lin Xia frowned and shook his head in confusion. On the left is the ward, on the right is the activity area. Lin Xia looked at the signboard and muttered, how can this layout be the same as the mental hospital I used to live in? Lin Xia hesitated for a moment and walked into the activity area first. Here, it's different. Lin Xia looked at the dark and monotonous corridor before him and muttered to himself that he clearly remembered that when he was in the Sunshine Psychiatric Hospital, the ward had several floors, and although the facilities were not too advanced, they were at least clean and tidy. After wandering through the activity area, he turned back and walked towards the ward area on the other side. When Lin Xia arrived at the entrance of the ward area, he suddenly stopped walking. Lin Xia forcefully averted his gaze from the door, stabilized his mind for a moment, and looked elsewhere. In the upper right corner of the ward, there is an ancient door sign hanging, with a unique pattern on each room door sign. But the ward area in front of Lin Xia has only 1 floor and only 6 rooms. The doors of these 6 rooms were filled with strange symbols and graphics, densely packed, like some kind of seal. Just a glance made Lin Xia dizzy. Lin Xia walked down the corridor until the final 6th ward, looking at these door signs and still had no clue. He looked at the eerie door in front of him, lost in thought. For example, the number 1 ward where Lin Xia is currently standing has a large black circle painted on the doorplate. On the doorplate of ward 2, there is a stick-like pen painted on it. Or is it true, as the name of this mental hospital suggests, that the people living inside are gods? Lin Xia hesitated for a moment and slowly reached out to the door handle of the 6th ward. In this mental hospital in his dream, only the ward area was different from the Sunshine Mental Hospital in his memory. So, are there really patients living in these wards? Otherwise, why is the layout here exactly the same as that of the Sunshine Psychiatric Hospital? Lin Qia's hand gradually approached, lightly touching the door handle with his fingertips, and a cool touch was transmitted. It's not that. Lin Xia was reckless. On the one hand, this is his dream, and even if something goes wrong, it won't have a significant impact on him. On the other hand, in order to enter this mental hospital, he knocked on the door day after day for 5 years, and he didn't want to leave in such a daze, and in his subconscious, he felt that perhaps there were any secrets related to himself in this mental hospital. The door remained motionless. He stood still, exerted all his strength, and pulled again, without the repulsive force or stinging pain imaginable. The hand naturally gripped the handle. Lin Xia tugged hard. I still can't open it. The fourth room, the third room, the second room still not moving. Lin Xia gave up the door of this room and instead walked to the entrance of the fifth ward, forcefully pulling on the door. Click. With a mentality of inevitable failure, Lin Xia forcefully tugged at the door of the first ward. Lin Xia tried room by room, but no door could be opened until in the end, he walked to the door of the first ward. A soft sound came from the door handle, and the complex patterns engraved on the door suddenly broke and gradually dissipated into the air. Lin Xia was startled and took a few steps back, staring fixedly ahead. The door is open. 6 wards, only the first door can be opened. Is it only this room that is set to be able to be opened, or is it like knocking on the door for 5 years that one's current strength can only open the first door? Lin Xia knocked on the door for 5 years, and after opening his eyes, his spiritual perception increased before he could open the door and enter the hospital. Is it necessary to enhance one's own strength before opening the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth wards that follow? Lin Xia is not sure, and now he doesn't have time to dwell on these things, because in front of him, the previously sealed ward door was slowly opening. The space in the ward is not large and the light is also very dim. In the center of the ward is a chair, on which sits a woman in a starry black dress, staring dully ahead. No matter who she is, being polite and polite is not wrong. As the saying goes, if you don't hit a smiling person with your hand, be polite, and even if it's a god, you shouldn't embarrass him. However, Lin Qia's face stiffened with laughter outside, and the woman in black remained motionless like a statue. Lin Xia gritted his teeth and walked directly into the room. Except for this person, a chair, there was nothing else in the dark room. Lin Xia cautiously walked to the door, thought for a moment, and a very official smile appeared on his face, waving to the woman inside. Hello, I am Lin Xia. Patient, Nix task, assist Nix in treating mental illness. When the treatment progress reaches the specified values, 1%, 50%, 100%, some of Nix's abilities can be randomly selected. Current treatment progress, 0%. Just as he walked into the room, lines of text suddenly appeared on the wall behind the woman in black. Ward 1. This is one of the few gods standing at the top of the mythological system. So, the woman in front of her who looks dull is the famous night goddess, the high cold and elegant temperament, perfect and flawless facial features, smooth black long hair hanging behind like a waterfall, and the black starry sand dress as deep as night, set off the fair skin like a snowy mountain jelly that can be blown and broken. After reading the words on the wall, Lin Xia took a cold breath. Although he didn't quite understand mythology, the night goddess Nyx, as one of the 5 creation gods in ancient Greek mythology, he had heard of it, belonging to the emperor of the night. Lin Xia touched his chin and carefully examined Nyx up close. He had seen God with his own eyes, and compared to the blazing angel on the moon, he always felt that something was missing from Nyx: divinity, power, authority. Although her eyes are lifeless, the temperament she exudes just by sitting here is far beyond what humans can possess. Even the female emperors that have existed in history cannot be compared to them. Nyx, she is a god and also an emperor. A god standing at the top of mythology. How could she get sick? Is her illness natural or caused by human factors, or are they all missing? Lin Xia didn't know, but he could guess that Nyx's current situation was closely related to her illness. You should know, this is a god. As a former mentally ill patient, Lin Xia also has some knowledge of mental illness. Generally speaking, it can be divided into depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, schizophrenia, delusions, and so on. To treat Nikes, the first step is to confirm what illness she has. Lin Xia pondered for a moment and squatted down in front of Nikes, shaking his hand in front of her. If it's natural, Lin Xia doesn't quite believe it, but if it's human-made, Lin Xia doesn't know what kind of existence can make the night goddess sick, and it's still a mental illness. If according to the text on the wall, Lin Xia needs to try to help Nikes treat her illness now. But what is her illness? Lin Xia swallowed and dared to not move. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Just as Lin Xia's scalp was tingling from Nike's gaze changed. Can you hear me? Lin Xia whispered in Nike's ear. Suddenly, Nyx's body trembled, startled Lin Xia and instinctively took a few steps back. Immediately after, Nike's head turned stiffly towards Lin Xia's direction, his dull eyes fixed on him. Nyx's body trembled slightly, tears swirled in her eyes, and her lips struggled to open. Choke my throat for a long time. Hoarse mouth. From dullness to confusion, from confusion to shock, from shock to tears in my eyes. Me, child, finally found you, my child. At this moment, Lin Xia only felt an electric current rushing straight into his brain from the soles of his feet, leaving his mind shocked and blank. She, not the night goddess. No, in case wait. How can this foreign night goddess speak Chinese? Lin Xia does not remember what his parents looked like. After all, they went nowhere after giving birth to themselves and entrusting them to their aunt. Can my mother should, perhaps, be a human. At this moment, Lin Xia's mind had become a mess of mud, and he instinctively opened his arms, wanting to take the embrace of the night goddess. However, the night goddess ran like this and brushed past Lin Xia. Oh yes, this is in my dream. It doesn't seem strange that I can understand the language of God. Perhaps this is the transmission signal of brain waves. Just as Lin Xia was daydreaming, Nike stood up and opened her arms, staggering towards Lin Xia. She ran faster and faster, and her expression became more and more excited. Lin Xia. Immediately after, Nike's gaze fell on the chair where she had been sitting for an unknown amount of time. After a moment of confusion, holding Lin Xia tightly the small vase on the back windowsill, Nike's tightly hugged the vase, tears streaming down. My child, you're still alive. I finally found you, Lin Xia. I think I probably know where she is sick. The illness is not mild. Rush forward and hold on to the chair and vase, crying again. Zayupianos. My child, so you're here too. The messy Lin Xia stood there like a statue, watching as Nix recognized the vase, chair, wall, and air for his child, crying uncontrollably. In his mind, the spiritual hospital of the gods shrouded in mist was sinking and floating, and there seemed to be a close connection between him and the hospital. Now he doesn't need to fall asleep and can always immerse himself in a mental hospital. Is this the welfare? After opening the door, Lin Xia will try to connect his consciousness into the mental hospital and immediately sense everything that is happening inside the hospital. In the early morning, Lin Xia woke up leisurely from his dream and looked at the bare ceiling, sighing helplessly. After spending the night with Nikes, Lin Xia felt that he was no longer good as a whole. Just as he was about to get up, he suddenly let out a faint sigh. Treating illness. Treating illness. I'm not a doctor either. How can I help her treat her illness? At this moment, Nikes was holding a vase and chair in the yard, talking to himself in the air next to him. Without knowing what he was saying, Lin Xia sat on the bed, glumly rubbing the corners of his eyes. Of course, the 5 sealed wards are still inaccessible. Suddenly, Lin Xia's eyes lit up. As if thinking of something, Lin Xia's eyes narrowed slightly, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Zhangnan City, a tall building, squeaked. The door was slowly pushed open, and Zhao Kongqing walked in listlessly, occasionally sighing. Lao Zhao, what's wrong with you? The 5 people sitting in the room were surprised to see Zhao Kongqing's appearance and asked, did you get injured last night? Look at this expression, there's a high possibility of a breakup. Sleeping slot. Lao Zhao, won't your wife divorce you? Don't talk nonsense. 5 people, I guessed with each word you said, and after a while, the silent Zhao Kong City let out a faint sigh. Am I really so unattractive? The 5 of them rolled their eyes together, pretending not to hear the sentence, and continued to work on their tasks. Some sharpened their knives, some wiped their guns, some played with their phones, and some fell asleep upon hearing the following sentence. Everyone suddenly lifted their heads and stopped their work, their eyes beginning to glow. That guy who seems to be the agent of the Blazing Angel. No, I'm asking you seriously. Zhao Kongqing was anxious, seeing that no one had paid attention to Zhao Kongqing for a long time. Hong Ying, who was polishing her gun, sighed and said, Kongqing brother, have you been stimulated? It can be said. Zhao Kongqing paused and said, I met the owner of that golden forbidden village last night. I thought Zhangnan City had a Klein-level strongman. However, it's also true that if that extremely dangerous god really chooses an agent and has grown to the Klein level, the top management cannot be unaware. The man sitting on the sofa narrowed his eyes slightly and said, anyway, the Blazing Angel has chosen an agent and given the Divine Village. This is a big deal, and we need to report it to the senior management quickly. Isn't he very strong? Who is he? You've been thinking too much. Zhao Kongqing shook his head and said, I'm just an ordinary high school student. The power fluctuations at the Klein level should be just remnants of the power left by the fiery angel on him. He's still a newcomer who has just entered the light realm. Upon hearing this, there was a hint of disappointment in the eyes of several people. Just when several people were ready to make a good roast, the door of the room was opened again. A man wearing a dark red cloak walked in, his face still stained with blood, and his steps were heavy as if he had poured lead. Upon seeing this man, everyone, including Zhao Kongqing, immediately stood up. By the way, since you met him, Lao Zhao, what about others? Didn't you bring back such an important person? He ran away. Zhao Kongqing spoke quietly, he told me to get his backpack and then ran away while I was out of my mind. Everyone was speechless. I'm fine, but the Ghost Face King has run away. The faces of several people suddenly became solemn. The captain continued, last night, I chased and killed the Ghost Noodle King all the way to the suburbs outside the northern city, and had a fight with him. He was seriously injured, but later he spared no effort to escape from his own source. Captain, are you okay? The captain waved his hand, took off his blood-stained cloak, and sat down on a small stool by the door, with indescribable exhaustion between his eyebrows. Wu Xiangnan slowly stood up, took out a map of the surrounding area of Zhangnan City from under the sofa, and unfolded it on the ground. Zhangnan City is located relatively far away from nearby cities. Last night, the captain and Ghost Face King fought in the northern suburbs. Apart from Zhangnan City, it is also dozens of kilometers away from the nearest city. Wu Xiangnan drew a circle on the map. What's wrong with that? Hong Ying's eyes were full of confusion. So, the ghost-faced king may have escaped from Changnan City now. No, not necessarily. The man sitting on the sofa suddenly spoke up. Everyone looked at him, and the captain's eyebrows slightly raised. Speak up, Xiangnan. That's right. Zhao Kongqing's brow furrowed slightly, but Changnan City is so big, we don't even know where it will appear. Sewer. Wu Xiangnan pushed his glasses and outlined a curve on the map with a red pen. Ghost-faced people love to drill through sewers, and ghost-faced king used to escape through sewers. There is only one sewer connecting the suburbs of Beicheng, which means that the location where ghost-faced king appears is likely to be somewhere where this sewer passes. At this moment, the captain's eyes gradually lit up and he said, the ghost-faced king has been seriously injured and cannot cross such a long distance without regaining his strength. Wu Xiangnan continued the captain's words and said, if the ghost noodle king wants to recover his strength, he can only rely on cannibalism, which means it will definitely return to Changnan City. Zhao Kongqing immediately straightened up his chest and said, leave this matter to me, I must personally arrest this kid. Didn't he run away? Can you still find him? Hong Ying whispered that he is wearing the school uniform of number 2 middle school, and I am blocking him at the school gate today. If I don't believe it, I won't be able to block him. Immediately send someone to search along this sewer. This time, we must not let it run away. The captain's eyes flashed cold and ordered immediately. Receive. By the way, there's one more thing. Wu Xiangnan turned to look at Zhao Kongqing and said, we must bring back the agent of the incandescent angel. His potential is too great to fall into the hands of the ancient god church. In a sense, the priority of this matter is higher than the elimination of the ghost-faced king. Yang Jin looked at Lin Xia, who was not wearing a school uniform or carrying a backpack, and asked curiously, I have something to do today, so I won't go for now. Lin Xia opened the door while putting on his shoes and said, is aunt still sleeping? She just returned an hour ago. A confident smile appeared on the corner of Zhao Kongqing's mouth. Brother, why don't you go to school today? His eyes have recovered, but he hasn't told his aunt or Yang Jin yet. Firstly, because his aunt was on the evening shift last night, the two didn't meet at all. As for the second point, Lin Xia has just acquired these eyes and is unable to control the power in his eyes. The golden light sometimes suddenly appears from the bottom of his eyes, although it is not very obvious. If his aunts see it, he will definitely force himself to check his eyes again and spend money in vain. He wants to announce this matter when he can fully control his eyes. I see. You can go to school earlier and not learn from me. Okay. Lin Xia closed the door and silently took off the black satin from his eyes, putting it into his pocket. Sunshine Psychiatric Hospital. The last time Lin Xia came here was 10 years ago. In the past decade, Lin Xia has changed a lot, and this mental hospital has also changed a lot. However, since Lin Xia left the house, there was no need to wrap black satin again, as it was too eye-catching. Lin Xia took out the sunglasses that Yang Jin had bought for him before from his pocket, put on his glasses, and strode towards the bus stop. After more than an hour of turbulence, Lin Xia finally arrived at his destination. It's just that my body has bent a lot and my hair has turned gray a lot. The old man seemed to have seen Lin Xia, narrowed his eyes, and raised his right hand to point at Lin Xia. Just when Lin Xia thought the old man still remembered him and was about to say hello, all the old walls have been renovated. The gate is twice as spacious as before, 2 modern high-rise buildings have replaced the original 3-story small building, and even the 6 characters Sunshine Psychiatric Hospital have become gilded and stamped. Standing at the entrance, Lin Xia could no longer connect the modern hospital in front of him with the small building in his memory. The only thing that hasn't changed may be the old gatekeeper. Grandpa let out a loud shout. That silly kid over there. You're blocking the car behind you. Dong dong dong, please come in. Lin Xia pushed the door open and entered the consulting room. Sitting on the other side of the table is a middle-aged male doctor, dressed in a white coat and wearing a sparse Mediterranean head. At first glance, it is a symbol of wisdom. Lin Xia sat down in a chair and the doctor spoke leisurely. Tell me, what's wrong with it? I have nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you. What are you doing here? I am fine, but I have a friend who has a serious mental illness. The doctor heard this and looked at Lin Xia with a strange expression, smiling and stroking a few hairs on his head. That friend you're talking about, isn't it just you? Lin Xia replied positively, no, he's really a friend. Lin Xia looked at the doctor strangely for a few moments, then hesitated and nodded helplessly. Lin Xia slowly stood up from his seat under the doctor's gaze. He walked straight up to him. Okay, can you tell me if you have, your friend? What are the specific symptoms? Lin Xia pondered for a moment. This may be a bit difficult to describe. The doctor smiled and said, then treat yourself like that friend and show me the truth. My eyes are filled with kindness. Speak softly, my big brother. Dad has finally found you. He reached out his hand, burying the head of a middle-aged doctor in his own arms. The other hand gently caressed the few remaining delicate hairs on the doctor's head. Yes, did you cry for a long time? I've been crying all along. Doctor, in the next 10 minutes, Lin Xia used the argumentative techniques he had learned throughout his life, spitting profusely to explain to the doctor that it was not really his own illness, avoiding the fate of being forced into hospital directly. So, your friend sees everything like he sees his own child. She doesn't sleep. The doctor frowned and said, "You friend, you are very ill. I strongly suggest that you bring her to our hospital for hospitalization. Like to sit in the yard and tell stories to vases and stools, that's right. How is sleep?" Lin Xia's expression was somewhat awkward. Can real-life medicine be brought to mind? Lin Xia didn't know, but he felt that even if he brought it in, the medicine for ordinary people's illnesses might not have any effect on the gods. Her condition is quite special and she does not have the conditions for hospitalization. Lin Xia spoke helplessly. He naturally couldn't tell the truth. If he really told the doctor that the night goddess Nyx was a patient and still lived in his mental hospital, he would soon receive a hospitalization notice. The doctor hesitated for a moment and began typing on the keyboard with both hands. If you can't be hospitalized, you can only rely on medication for treatment first. I'll prescribe some medicine for you, and you can go back and give it to her. If the condition doesn't improve, you must bring it to the hospital. If we can start from the perspective of the cause of the disease and provide psychological treatment, there is also a possibility of improvement. However, without drug assistance, it is difficult. Medication and psychotherapy are complementary relationships. Do you understand what I mean? Lin Xia nodded thoughtfully. Doctor, besides taking medicine, is there any other way to treat it? The doctor pondered for a moment and slowly spoke. Your friend's symptoms belong to severe delusions. I have seen many of these patients. Before, there was a man who loved his wife very much. Later, when his wife died in a car accident, he often spoke into the air, imagining that his wife was still by his side. This kind of illness is mostly due to having suffered huge psychological trauma, subconsciously rejecting reality, and creating a false consciousness of she is still around for oneself. And these drugs are too expensive. Lin Xia, who came out of the mental hospital, took the return bus. This trip to the mental hospital was worth it. At least it gave Lin Xia a breakthrough. Should we start from the perspective of the cause of the disease? But he doesn't know anything about Nike's past and has no way to start. It seems that more preparatory work needs to be done. Lin Xia took the medication order from the doctor, but did not choose to pay for it. Since the drugs in reality cannot work on the gods in his mind, he also does not need to spend this money. Second middle school, at the entrance of the school. Hey, look, who's that uncle? I don't know, maybe it's some parent. To enlighten Nyx from a psychological perspective, and to achieve this, it is necessary to have a sufficient understanding of her. So, Lin Xia got off the bus at a certain station and walked into the Changnan City Library. You say he won't have been here from morning until now? No, it's almost 10 o'clock now. Who knows? Oh, by the way, have you heard that 2 students were killed last night when they came home from school? I saw him when I entered the school gate around 7 in the morning. I also saw that he was wearing sunglasses and a shirt this morning, leaning against the wall with a cup of coffee in his hand. At that time, he thought he was quite handsome. So why is he like a beggar now? His eyes are all red. On the curb opposite the school entrance, a lonely man was sitting there alone, with cigarette butts all over the ground and indescribable sadness from his back under the streetlights. Zhao Kongqing flicked the cigarette in his hand, but he couldn't figure out where the problem was. He squatted from 6 in the morning until 10 in the evening, stunned by the sun, and didn't see the figure of that boy. It's really fake. Of course it's true. I heard. Zhao Kongqing supported the ground with both hands and slowly sat up from the curb. He pretended to casually pat the dust on his pants and began to move his hands and feet. At that moment, a flash of light from the corner of his eye suddenly caught sight of a young man in casual clothes walking slowly along the other side of the road, carrying a few books. That guy, he's a bit like that kid's body shape. What I saw last night was the school uniform of number 2 middle school. Did this kid guess he was coming to stop him and just didn't come? His grandmother's buttocks are sitting sore, lying trough, whoosh. Zhao Kongqing didn't say a word, like a gust of wind rushing straight towards the young man, his eyes red, and he looked fierce and evil. Kind of. Zhao Kongqing was stunned and blinked hard. It's good now. Yesterday I just let them off the pigeon, and now they're coming after them. Although Lin Xia's speed is not slow, it is still much worse than Zhao Kongqing. In a few seconds, he was caught up by Zhao Kongqing. Zhao Kongqing fiercely grabbed Lin Xia's shoulder and sneered twice. However, when he was about 20 meters away from the young man, he seemed to notice something and trembled all over. He also started running. The 2 of them were running wildly on the street, one behind the other. Lin Xia really wants to slap himself 2 times at this moment, so why did he choose this path if he didn't go through multiple paths? Boy, we're meeting again. Lin Xia turned his head stiffly and tilted his head. Who are you? Zhao Kongqing felt like he was going to be angry. Me. Who am I? I am an innocent victim who was deceived by you last night and had a cold wind blowing through my emotions for most of the night. Zhao Kongqing tightly locked Lin Xia's hand, like a pure-hearted uncle who was afraid of his boyfriend being taken away by others. I tell you, don't play dumb here for me, you will definitely not run away today. Lin Xia looked at his locked arm and gave up his meaningless struggle, looking like he was at the mercy of the emperor. Okay, where are you going to chat? Follow me. Zhao Kongqing took Lin Xia's hand and took a big step towards an unknown direction. When Lin Xia saw that he was gradually approaching a couple's hotel, his face suddenly changed and he turned his head and wanted to escape the scene. Do you need to go to a couple's hotel for chatting? Didn't you look at the eyes of those people along the way? I'm so embarrassed to death, what do you know? This is a safe house, there's no other point in bringing you here. Besides, do I look like that kind of person? Zhao Kongqing rolled his eyes and dragged struggling Lin Xia to the front desk, casting an extremely greasy glance at the stunned female clerk at the front desk. However, Zhao Kongqing did not give him this opportunity at all, and instead locked him tightly and dragged him towards the hotel. What are you doing? I'm telling you, I have hemorrhoids. Don't mess around, what are you guys thinking in high school? Just find a place to chat. Alright, sir. I need your ID here, and this little comrade. May I also show you your ID? Lin Xia, who was forced to hand over his documents, looked strangely at the excited female salesperson, unaware of what corrupt woman's favorite plot she was filling her mind with. However, this cannot be blamed. In the middle of the night, a middle-aged man forcibly dragged a young man to a couple's hotel to open a big bedroom or a dynamic emotional suite, saying it was for chatting. Who believes it? A dynamic and passionate themed king bedroom, thank you, Lin Xia. The female shop assistant froze in place, her brain briefly shut down, and she became inexplicably excited. It wasn't until I swiped my card into the room and saw a dazzling array of wonderful facilities with my own eyes that the pure Lin Xia realized that wealthy people spend so much time playing. It's really passionate. Zhao Kongqing locked the door and then released Lin Xia. He walked straight to the electric bed and sat down. His body, which had been stiff for a day, finally relaxed. Here is your room card, room number 3966. Wishing you both a pleasant stay. The female shop assistant looked at Lin Xia with a smile on her face, her eyes almost narrowing into a slit. Lin Xia's fists stiffened. Why are you standing there foolishly? Follow me up. Zhao Kongqing took Lin Xia and walked towards the elevator. Lin Xia, male, 17 years old, single, height 175. Wait, you know that's not what I'm talking about. Zhao Kongqing raised his forehead and pointed to Lin Xia's eyes with the other finger. I'm talking about your eyes. Lin Xia fell into silence. Don't be so nervous, it's really just a chat. Zhao Kongqing smiled and cursed when he saw Lin Xia's expression as if facing a formidable enemy. Lin Xia sighed and sat on the sofa by the door. What do you want to talk to me about? Of course it's about you. And this sentence also revealed an important message to Lin Xia. That is, the blazing angel he saw 10 years ago turned out to be the famous king of angels, Michael. Seeing Lin Xia nodding, Zhao Kongqing's heart finally relaxed and his gaze towards Lin Xia gradually became fiery. Why did he seek you? What did he say to you? How far can you use the ban on rural areas now? Have you met Michael? Upon hearing this sentence, Lin Xia's body trembled slightly, hesitated for a while, and nodded lightly. Sure enough, the man in front of him knows a lot, and the forces behind him are not simple either. Lin Xia pondered for a moment, staring into the eyes of Zhao Kongqing and asking the first question. Does there really exist mythological gods in this world? Existence. Zhao Kongqing did not hesitate and nodded directly. But not all gods exist. What does it mean? Zhao Kongqing's problem was like a barrage of bullets, and Lin Xia's brow furrowed slightly and shook his head. You have too many questions. Zhao Kongqing also realized that he was a bit off guard and gave a dry smile. He said, yes, you must have a lot of doubts in your heart now. So let me answer them for you first. If you want to know anything, just ask. 100 years ago, that's right, before the fog appeared, there had never been any traces of gods in this world. Zhao Kongqing's eyes narrowed slightly, but since the fog that covered the earth appeared, everything seems to be different. In September 1922, a year after the appearance of fog, a fog exploration team dispatched by Xia observed a giant dragon slowly flying in the sky in the Marian Trench, marking the first time in human history that mythological creatures had been observed. Zhao Kongqing pondered, as if wondering where to start. What do you think is a myth? Lin Xia thought for a moment. Is it the spiritual sustenance of the ancients? Is it fear and fantasy about the unknown forces of nature? You're right, Zhao Kongqing nodded, and until 100 years ago, everyone thought so. The blazing angel Michael you see is the third mythological creature observed by humans in 1928, codenamed 3.1928. Lin Xia was stunned. At that time, we had not yet mastered the technique of landing on the moon, had we? How did they find the blazing angel on the moon? We didn't find him. Zhao Kongqing shook his head. In March 1928, a golden sword light emitted from the moon, crossing the universe, and raising a large volcano in North America. It wasn't until then that we knew that there was still a deity on the moon. After research and verification, it was found that the dragon was the chaotic dragon in the Bible, Leviathan. Legend has it that it was a creature created by God. The discovery of this giant dragon directly overturned the cognition of the entire upper echelons of Xia. They realized that since the beginning of this fog, the world has become completely different from before. At that time, the fog had just emerged, and the entire summer was in panic. The high-level officials hid the results of this exploration for the sake of national stability. The first mythical creature observed by humans, the chaos dragon Leviathan, was codenamed 001 by the senior management of Xia. During subsequent exploration, some mythical creatures were discovered and continued to be numbered downwards. North America. What's there? Later, our exploration team spent a year arriving at the volcano and, amidst the ruins, discovered the God 004 sealed in the Shinshu. Zhao Kongqing paused and continued, fallen angel, Lucifer. Zhao Kongqing felt like he was going to be angry. Me. Who am I? I am an innocent victim who was deceived by you last night and had a cold wind blowing through my emotions for most of the night. Zhao Kongqing tightly locked Lin Xia's hand, like a pure-hearted uncle who was afraid of his boyfriend being taken away by others. I tell you, don't play dumb here for me, you will definitely not run away today. Lin Xia looked at his locked arm and gave up his meaningless struggle, looking like he was at the mercy of the emperor. Okay, where are you going to chat? Follow me. Zhao Kongqing took Lin Xia's hand and took a big step towards an unknown direction. When Lin Xia saw that he was gradually approaching a couple's hotel, his face suddenly changed and he turned his head and wanted to escape the scene. Do you need to go to a couple's hotel for chatting? Didn't you look at the eyes of those people along the way? I'm so embarrassed to death, what do you know? This is a safe house, there's no other point in bringing you here. Besides, do I look like that kind of person? Zhao Kongqing rolled his eyes and dragged struggling Lin Xia to the front desk, casting an extremely greasy glance at the stunned female clerk at the front desk. However, Zhao Kongqing did not give him this opportunity at all, and instead locked him tightly and dragged him towards the hotel. What are you doing? I'm telling you, I have hemorrhoids. Don't mess around, what are you guys thinking in high school? Just find a place to chat. Alright, sir. I need your ID here, and this little comrade. May I also show you your ID? Lin Xia, who was forced to hand over his documents, looked strangely at the excited female salesperson, unaware of what corrupt woman's favorite plot she was filling her mind with. However, this cannot be blamed. In the middle of the night, a middle-aged man forcibly dragged a young man to a couple's hotel to open a big bedroom or a dynamic emotional suite, saying it was for chatting. Who believes it? A dynamic and passionate themed king bedroom, thank you, Lin Xia. The female shop assistant froze in place, her brain briefly shut down, and she became inexplicably excited. It wasn't until I swiped my card into the room and saw a dazzling array of wonderful facilities with my own eyes that the pure Lin Xia realized that wealthy people spend so much time playing. It's really passionate. Zhao Kongqing locked the door and then released Lin Xia. He walked straight to the electric bed and sat down. His body, which had been stiff for a day, finally relaxed. Here is your room card, room number 3966. Wishing you both a pleasant stay. The female shop assistant looked at Lin Xia with a smile on her face, her eyes almost narrowing into a slit. Lin Xia's fists stiffened. Why are you standing there foolishly? Follow me up. Zhao Kongqing took Lin Xia and walked towards the elevator. Lin Xia, male, 17 years old, single, height 175. Wait, you know that's not what I'm talking about. Zhao Kongqing raised his forehead and pointed to Lin Xia's eyes with the other finger. I'm talking about your eyes. Lin Xia fell into silence. Don't be so nervous, it's really just a chat. Zhao Kongqing smiled and cursed when he saw Lin Xia's expression as if facing a formidable enemy. Lin Xia sighed and sat on the sofa by the door. What do you want to talk to me about? Of course it's about you. And this sentence also revealed an important message to Lin Xia. That is, the blazing angel he saw 10 years ago turned out to be the famous king of angels, Michael. Seeing Lin Xia nodding, Zhao Kongqing's heart finally relaxed and his gaze towards Lin Xia gradually became fiery. Why did he seek you? What did he say to you? How far can you use the ban on rural areas now? Have you met Michael? Upon hearing this sentence, Lin Xia's body trembled slightly, hesitated for a while, and nodded lightly. Sure enough, the man in front of him knows a lot, and the forces behind him are not simple either. Lin Xia pondered for a moment, staring into the eyes of Zhao Kongqing and asking the first question. Does there really exist mythological gods in this world? Existence? Zhao Kongqing did not hesitate and nodded directly. But not all gods exist. What does it mean? Zhao Kongqing's problem was like a barrage of bullets, and Lin Xia's brow furrowed slightly and shook his head. You have too many questions. Zhao Kongqing also realized that he was a bit off guard and gave a dry smile. He said, yes, you must have a lot of doubts in your heart now. So let me answer them for you first. If you want to know anything, just ask. 100 years ago, that's right, before the fog appeared, there had never been any traces of gods in this world. Zhao Kongqing's eyes narrowed slightly, but since the fog that covered the earth appeared, everything seems to be different. In September 1922, a year after the appearance of fog, a fog exploration team dispatched by Great Xia observed a giant dragon slowly flying in the sky in the Marian Trench, marking the first time in human history that mythological creatures had been observed. Zhao Kongqing pondered, as if wondering where to start. What do you think is a myth? Lin Xia thought for a moment. Is it the spiritual sustenance of the ancients? Is it fear and fantasy about the unknown forces of nature? You're right, Zhao Kongqing nodded, and until 100 years ago, everyone thought so. The blazing angel Michael you see is the third mythological creature observed by humans in 1928, codenamed 3.1928. Lin Xia was stunned. At that time, we had not yet mastered the technique of landing on the moon, had we? How did they find the blazing angel on the moon? We didn't find him. Zhao Kongqing shook his head. In March 1928, a golden sword light emitted from the moon, crossing the universe, and raising a large volcano in North America. It wasn't until then that we knew that there was still a deity on the moon. After research and verification, it was found that the dragon was the chaotic dragon in the Bible, Leviathan. Legend has it that it was a creature created by God. The discovery of this giant dragon directly overturned the cognition of the entire upper echelons of Xia. They realized that since the beginning of this fog, the world has become completely different from before. At that time, the fog had just emerged, and the entire summer was in panic. The high-level officials hid the results of this exploration for the sake of national stability. As the first mythical creature observed by humans, the Chaos Dragon Leviathan was codenamed 001 by the senior management of Xia. During subsequent exploration, some mythical creatures were discovered and continued to be numbered downwards. North America. What's there? Later, our exploration team spent a year arriving at the volcano and, amidst the ruins, discovered the god 004 sealed in the Shinshuzhao. Kongqing paused and continued, fallen angel, Lucifer. No forbidden zone. A sanctuary that can isolate the inside from the outside, preventing our battles with enemies from affecting ordinary people. Every city's night watch is equipped with 3 signboards capable of casting that no forbidden zone, controlled by one person. Since we generally do not engage in direct combat, we are also known as the Watchers. Lin Xia raised an eyebrow. So, you're just a lookout. If you can't talk, you should speak less. Zhao Kongqing rolled his eyes. You just said there are 3 ways to obtain a sanctuary. What's the last one? The last one is a gift from the gods, just like your situation. Zhao Kongqing's face became serious. Some gods will bestow part of their power onto selected humans, making them their agents in the human world. These sanctuaries gifted by the gods are also known as divine sanctuaries. Zhao Kongqing stood up, walked up to Lin Xia, stared into his eyes, and spoke word by word. Lin Xia, what are the instructions that Michael gave you? Which side do you belong to? Lin Xia looked puzzled. I don't know, he didn't say. However, in return for receiving power, the agent will also receive instructions from the god. Some are to destroy human society, some are to protect human society, some are to help the god find something. In any case, under normal circumstances, there is only one agent for a god, and he represents the will of the god. Among the dozen or so divine agents that have appeared so far, most are agents of evil gods trying to destroy the new order of humanity and return the world to chaos. They've created an organization called the Ancient God Church. Agents of benevolent gods also exist, but they are extremely rare. As for how many agents of neutral gods there are, we do not know. Zhao Kongqing scrutinized Lin Xia for a long time, as if trying to detect any signs of lying. After a while, he looked away and slowly sat down. According to our speculation, Michael should belong to either the neutral or benevolent camp, otherwise we would have killed you long ago. But, if he gave you the divine sanctuary, why didn't he say anything? What exactly does he want to do? What Lin Xia said was the absolute truth. At that time, Michael just looked at him from a distance on the moon, then he fainted. The other party really didn't say a word. Zhao Kongqing frowned. He didn't say anything. You didn't hear his voice in your heart? No, really not. Wait. You wait. Zhao Kongqing suddenly stood up, blocking the door. He stared into Lin Xia's eyes. You're just going to leave after asking your questions? What about me? You? You can stay here alone and be passionate. Lin Xia answered seriously. Not that, I mean, don't you want to ask me? Who am I? Zhao Kongqing found it exhausting to talk to this kid. Lin Xia frowned slightly. What does it matter to me who you are? Lin Xia continued to open the door. Zhao Kongqing held the doorknob tightly. Why do I know so much? What kind of organization is behind me? What are we doing? Aren't you curious? Not curious. Zhao Kongqing sighed. Talking to this kid was even more tiring than a day of surveillance outside. In 1922, when our exploration team discovered the first mythical creature, the Chaos Dragon Leviathan, the upper echelons of Xia urgently established a military organization to deal with the invasion of mythical creatures at any time, known as the 139 Special Biological Response Group. At that time, our technology was relatively backward, and we knew nothing about the world in front of us, so the so-called Special Biological Response Group was just a sham and of little use. Lin Xia raised an eyebrow. So, even if I know about you and choose not to join, I won't be in danger? Of course not. We're military, at most we'll have you sign a non-disclosure agreement. What you're saying is pure nonsense. Then I might listen. Upon hearing this, Lin Xia sat back down. So, your existence is to protect Xia from the invasion of those evil gods? To be precise, all mythical creatures. What's the difference? As time went by, we observed more and more mythical creatures, tried to establish contact with a few of them, and also discovered the secret of the sanctuaries, and began to train special combat talents. When we found more and more sanctuary owners, we realized that due to the randomness of the appearance of sanctuary owners, it was impossible to include everyone within the military's scope. So, the 139 Special Biological Response Group gradually transformed into a semi-military, semi-civilian special form. Now, we call this special organization the Night Watch. So, we are also soldiers, we are soldiers who protect our country. Our existence is to prevent the people of Xia from suffering. Isn't this noble? Isn't this cool? Zhao Kongqing tried to persuade him earnestly. Very noble, very cool, I respect you guys, really. Lin Xia looked serious, he wasn't joking. From his eyes, one could truly see a deep respect. Zhao Kongqing's face gradually broke into a smile. Then you, of course, as I said before, the appearance of mythical creatures is random and has nothing to do with their strength. So not only the powerful gods that people are familiar with, but also some weak creatures that exist only in rural legends or minor tales have descended. The ghost-faced man you encountered last night is one of the rural horror stories. These creatures that don't possess world-ending power but can impact human society, we collectively refer to them as mysteries. I see. Lin Xia nodded, no wonder he found the creature he encountered last night somewhat familiar. It turned out to be born out of a rural story. What could be more important than protecting our country? I have an aunt and a cousin. Lin Xia looked out the window, his expression very calm. My aunt is not old, but for the sake of Ah Jean and me, a useless person, she works day and night in the factory, for 10 years without a break. Now her body is almost giving up, she's a stubborn person, even when she's rubbing her neck on the chair in the living room, tears streaming down her face, she insists she's doing yoga, that it's good for her health. I can't leave. Why? I have a lot of things to do. I have a lot of things to do. I need to earn money to support my family, I need to buy a big house for my aunt and cousin, I want my aunt to never have to return to that black factory to suffer. I want to put my cousin through college, I want him and my aunt to live a good life together. I sat opposite her, she thought I didn't see. She lives too cautiously, and too tired. My cousin is very smart, very filial, but he's still too young to bear the burden of this family. For the past 10 years, they haven't given up on me, this burden. Now that I'm finally better, how can I abandon them? You guys are very noble, very great, if conditions allow, I might join you, but now, I just want to stay by their side, to protect this home.
Zhao Kongqing flows. He really didn't in of the expect that this ordinary high school student in front of him would say such a thing and have such mature ideas at this moment. He realized how ridiculous his precious attempt to mobilize the prevalent middle school and passionate mentality among young men was. Lynch is not an ordinary high school student. Lynch stood up and walked straight to the door, hesitating for a moment before stopping. Thank you for telling me so much. I will sign the confidentiality agreement. After speaking, He pushed the door and walked out. This time, Zhao Kongqing just sat there silently by the bed, standing up slightly, as if trying to grab him. After a brief pause, He quickly sat there back. Kiaoki, finally back. Why didn't you of you wear your school uniform today? He knows what this young man means, and He also knows that He has the mission of bringing this young man back, but He can you of do it. Just said a few words, it's okay. Kiaochi, you have just transferred to a new school and should not leave a bad impression on the teacher. You should be more careful in your work. Aunt, I got up in a hurry this morning and forgot to wear it. You child, 10-1 of the teacher scolded you if you don't wear school uniforms. No, we got along quite well. They even sent me home, and I also gave them a ride. That in of is good. That's good. Got it. Aunt. How are you getting along with your classmates at school? They didn't of the exclude you, did they? Lynch closed the door and lay back on the bed, looking out at the night outside the window, with a long sigh. I went back to my room, Aunt. Well, go to bed early. After resting for a while, Lynch sat there at and just as He began to undress, a hard object fell out of his pocket. Bang, this world is much more complex than He imagined. However, it doesn't of the have much to do with him anymore. On the front of this emblem, 2 straight knives are intertwined, with the blade emitting a faint blue light. The background behind the knife is a night sky dotted with stars, and the workmanship is extremely exquisite. At the bottom of the pattern, there are 3 small characters of Zhao Kongqing engraved. Lynch lowered his head and picked up the shing, with confusion appearing between his eyebrows. This is a metal ornament, like a badge, which is a circle larger than a dollar coin. It is made of unknown material and emits a faint coolness when taken. Did He accidentally lose it? Lynch fiddled with the coat of arms, flipped it over and engraved several lines of small characters on the back. This is 10. リンチーズアイズナロードスライトリードットリンチーリカルドザットホワイルゼアオコングチェンワズドラッキングヒムツワーズザホテルジャストナウ HE シームドトゥータッチヒズポケットドットザホリゾンタルスオードアプローチャイズザアビスブラッディスカイイフザダークナイトカムズトゥーアンエンド I will stand before 10,000 people tonight HE has very important things to do.HE closed his eyes and sank his consciousness into the mental hospital of the gods in his mind. Good spirit was this written by the Aokong Chen himself or the motto of their night watchman Lynch mattered to himself looking down found it Unlike someone WHO could write such words after playing with it for a while, Lynch put it on the table, changed his clothes, and cried onto the bed. Not long after, Lynch, dressed in a white coat, walked slowly. In order to better take on the role of a psychiatrist, Lynch found a white coat in the dean's office and even a pair of flat glass on the color. At this moment, in the small courtyard of the mental hospital, Nix was sitting on a rocking chair holding a pile of bottles and jars, as if whispering something, and a smile occasionally appeared on the corner of his mouth. If we ignore the turbidity in her eyes and the strange things in her arms, leaning solely on the noble temperament emanating from her every move, this will surely be a stunning painting. From the Mystical books he has read, it can be seen that Nyx is indeed one of the most ancient and powerful deities in Greek mythology, with a top position and power. But compared to other gods, she has one biggest characteristic at first glance. It does seem like that. Lynch walked to the rocking chair and silently gazed at Nyx in of dull eyes, shining brightly. Except for a few, the vast majority of Nyx's children are evil gods. WHO, after their birth, become a disaster in the world, and there are also many gods. WHO fall into a tragic fate. From the few as in the mythical story, Lynch cannot obtain more detailed information about this night. Goddess, but HE speculates that Nyx's current condition may be related to her descendants. Love having children. According to Lynch's statistics, Nyx has at least 20 children, including the famous god of death, Thanatos, the god of sleep, Hephaestus, as well as the god of space, the goddess of fate, the god of misfortune, and so on. But what exactly happened to her descendants? Will it cause Nyx to react so violently, and as an ancient deity with divinity, would it really have such strong emotions? Or, before she fell ill, she was stripped of her divine body and character. The doctor at the Sunshine Psychiatric Hospital said that a male patient had fantasized about his wife because he missed her too much. Is it the same with Nyx's illness? Because I miss my own children too much, so I mistake those bottles and jars for her children. Thanatos, this child, has always been a troublemaker since childhood. Fen Ren, we must teach him a lesson. Nyx stroked the bass in his hand, staring blankly into the distance, with a hint of hope in his eyes, which then became cloudy again. Lynch is unknown. You knows, don't worry, your brother will be back soon. He just played around for a while. 3,000 years have passed. Why hasn't June of The come back yet? Looking at this scene, Lynch felt a tinge of bitterness in his heart for some reason. Her hoarse voice trembled slightly as she paused. Can't cure her illness. It is necessary to start from the root. Lynch's mind once again echoed with the doctor's words, as he lowered his head and pondered hard. The root cause. Nyx's illness lies in her lost child. WHO could have imagined that the night goddess, WHO used to be high, was now so helpless and humble. She is the night goddess and a mother waiting for her child to return. Even if we find them, will those evil gods really obedient to come with us? Lynch frowned and thought. Just then a spiritual light flashed through his mind. If you want to cure her, you can only start with her children, but you should know that her children are famous Greek gods, and you can each join of tea go and find them one by one and bring them back to Nyx. Right, it is unknown whether Kerin 7 nights or even if they were brought to this world by the mist. Fair are they looking for so many gods, in Nyx each join of dull eyes. Lynch walked step by step to her face gently scat down. Perhaps, is this possible? Lynch stood up and gazed at Nyx with perplexed eyes for a long time, finally making up his mind to move forward. Mother, I'm back. Whispering in her ear, reach out and embrace Nyx. At this moment, Nyx each join of eyes suddenly shone with an unprecedented expression. She trembled and stretched out her hands, tightly embraced Lynch. After a long time, she trembled and said a complete sentence. Welcome back, Thanatos, my child. At the moment Nyx spoke this sentence, a virtual panel appeared in Lynch's eyes out of thin air. Nyx treatment progress, 3% the reward acquisition conditions have been met, and the ability to randomly select the Nyx divine character has started immediately after. A virtual lottery carousel emerged and began to spin rapidly. Lynch can see that at least 20 areas have been divided on this turntable, and the area of each area is basically the same. This means that his probability of extracting these divine abilities is the same. Night sky descending, dim eyes, falling thousand stars, star splitting technique, night twinkling, night dependence, extraordinary fertility. The ability on the rotating turntable dazzled Lynch, but he always felt as if strange things were mixed in at the same time. Lynch noticed that in a corner of this turntable, there was actually a narrow black area that was different from other abilities, accounting for approximately 1% of the total area. The name of this divine ability is unknown. Unknown. What does this mean? What kind of ghost is extraordinary child birth? Is this also considered a divine ability? If I had this ability, would each in of it be possible to have a bunch of divine sons without even having to find a wife? HMM. It doesn't each in of T sound but either starry night dancer, . Lynchy site helpless rifen he so these was .by name. The level of this ability is much lower than what is known as star splitting or falling thousand stars, but fortunately, . It is not extraordinary fertility. This luck is truly mine. However, it's not important. Lynchy believes that is his damn luck. He probably one each in of T be able to smoke the unknown even 1,000 times. Lynchy took a deep breath and stared fixedly at the turntable in front of him. With a thought, the turntable began to slow down. The pointer crossed one ability after another and eventually stay above a capability area. Lynchy only felt that a mysterious energy was rapidly transforming his body, and the whole person, from soul to body, seemed to have been washed away, making him extremely comfortable. This feeling is really wonderful. This state lasted for about 5 seconds, and after it completely dissipated, Lynchy clearly felt that his body was different. The moment the pointer stopped, the circle in front of Lynchy gradually dissipated, and only the four was each in of starry night dancer, each in of quietly hovered in the air, the color becoming more profound. Lynchy reached out and grabbed it immediately after. Those four was turned into a black light and poured into Lynchy's body. In the dark, your speed, strength, durability, and recovery ability are all 5 times higher than usual. In the darkness, your existence is not easily detected. In the dark, your deterrent power against other creatures is stronger. In front of him, several other lines of small characters slowly appeared. Starry night dancers. This seemingly insignificant ability seems exceptionally powerful. . Besides, just being 5 times faster, stronger, and more durable than usual is already considered abnormal, even with his ordinary physical fitness. As long as he participates in triathlons or other events at night, it is definitely a safe Guinness World Record. A 5-fold bonus can allow his body to directly approach the limits of humanity. You have the ability to communicate with other nocturnal animals. Lynchy couldn't each in of T help but take a breath when he saw this. He did not have the idea of joining the night watchman, nor did he want to fight against those mystical creatures, but he was just a high school student at any rate, and it was impossible to say he had no aspirations for supernatural force. Moreover, only by becoming stronger can one better protest their family. Lynchy finally settled down and turned his gaze to an icon in front of him. This is only under the condition that his own quality is ordinary, and after systematic training, Lynchy dare not imagine how much he will grow. Not to mention the subsequent stealth and ability to communicate with nocturnal animals. This has completely exceeded the scope of humans. Lynchy suppressed his excitement and took a deep breath. She became ill with longing and fantasized about everything around her as her own child. But, . Those bottles and jars were not real people and ought not respond to NIX.SO. When Lynchy, WHO could breathe, move, and call out for his mother, appeared, Nix seemed to have come to life and finally found his spiritual sustenance. This is the first step that opened her heart, and it is also the reason why the treatment progress directly jumped to 3%. At this moment, Nix was looking at him tenderly, gently stroking his hair with his hand, and muttering to himself, Ichijuin of Danatas, where have you been for these 3,000 years, Ichijuin of? Do you know how much I miss you? Lynchy sat there silently. His gaze towards Nix filled with complexity. Ash guessed, for Nix now, she couldn't Ichijuin of T even distinguish between her own child and the base. How could she possibly recognize that Lynchy was not her child? At this moment, his remaining light glanced into Nix Ichijuin of arms and saw his other brothers and sisters shocking all over. In Nix's arms, he held several labeled bottles of different colors. Danatas, do you know how much your brother miss you? Hurry up and hug him. Nike smiled at the corners of his mouth and held the base in his hand up to Lynchy. Lynchy, helplessly, Lynchy could only take the base and pretend to caress it. Haloperidol. Why is this name so familiar? Isn't Ichijuin of T this medicine from the medication list that the psychiatrist gave him during the day? And there are 2 more hours behind. Divine use. In this moment, Lynchy seemed to have thought of something, and the whole person suddenly became excited on the label of one of the bottles. Lynchy clearly saw a large line of characters. Haloperidol. Divine use. Lynchy stared at it intently. His mouth opening wider and wider. The door of the room is open. And Nix should have come in before. Otherwise Ichijuin of T have taken so many younger brothers and sisters with him. Lynchy quickly walked into it, searched for it, and finally stopped in front of a huge metal cabinet. The light in his eyes became even brighter. In front of him, there was a whole wall of medication. He handed the base in his hand to Nix and H spoke. Ichijuin of I'll go and come back. Ichijuin of. Then he climbed up the second floor of the mental hospital like a gust of window and found a room at the end of the stairs. Drug storage room. He cannot bring real life drugs to the hospital, but he can find corresponding drugs that act on God here. In this way, things seem to have become much simpler. Lynch picked up a huge tools of drugs listed by the doctor during the day and ran downstairs to come to Nike's 一順 offside. There are various types of these drugs, and the vast majority are used for mental illness treatment, including haloperidol, chopromazine, and a large number of sedatives that he just saw. After these drugs, there two was added. 一順 of divine use. 一順 of a smile appeared on the corner of Lynch's mouth, which he should have thought of long ago. This is a mental hospital for treating the gods. Since it is a hospital, there are naturally rooms for storing medicines, and the medicines inside are all special drugs for the constitution of the gods. It's really difficult for a severely mentally ill person to remember to take their own medication. Nike stared intently at Lynch, as if there was a flower on his face. As if he had not heard Lynch's words at all. Forget it. I'll feed you every day at that time. Lynch looked at Nike's reaction and sighed helplessly. This is once a day, 2 capsules at a time, and this is 3 times a day, 1 capsule at a time, remember to eat it. Upon hearing Lynch's words, Nike's face immediately burst into a smile. She smiled happily. After Lynch gave Nike the medicine, he withdrew from his mind and gradually fell into a dream. This time, he did not have that thrilling dream of knocking on the door again. Since the combination of the divine psychiatric hospital with him, he seemed to have completely freed himself from the constraints of that dream and had a real dream. He had a good dream. He dreamed that he had been admitted to college, had a successful career, and lived in a big house with his aunt and Yanjin. He dreamed that a family of 3 could finally travel and see the mountains and water that he had only seen on TV due to his precious physical disability and the already tight family budget. Lynch has not had any extra money. In the past 17 years, let alone traveling, he has not even traveled to Cannon City. As soon as he opened the door, he saw his aunt hurriedly changing her shoes and preparing to leave. Auntie, why do you have to go to work so early? From the bottom of his heart, he still yearns for the outside world. When the alarm clock rang, Lynch reluctantly woke up and got dressed to go to school. Just as my aunt was about to close the door, Lynch spoke again. Auntie, a batch of new parts have arrived at the factory and we need to process them quickly. Aunt has left first, and you can continue to have breakfast with your brother. Remember not to be late. Aunt said in fragments. Audiobook.no. Nothing. Lynch hesitated for a moment, shook his head, and a smile appeared on his lips. When you come back, I will tell you good news. My aunt looked at him in confusion and cursed with a smile. 一順 of this child, you 一順 of are still playing cards with me here. Okay, my aunt is in a hurry now. Tell me tonight. 一順 of. Fat Strong Aunt stopped and looked at Lynch in confusion. Suddenly, he suddenly lifted his head, as if he had made a decision, and opened the door in his slipper. He stood at the entrance of the corridor and shouted down the stairs. After speaking, she hurriedly closed the door and ran downstairs, kicking and tapping. Lynch stood silently at the door, head lowered, wondering what he was thinking. You say it again. I can see it. I'm ready. Aunt, I can see it. The next moment, Lynch heard a sudden pause in the kicking sound downstairs, and then his aunt's voice came trembling up from below the 5th floor. Can you see it? Really, after a brief pause, a more urgent sound of going upstairs came from below. Shortly after, the panting aunt stood in front of Lynch. Her lips trembled slightly, but the corners of her mouth couldn't of tea control their upward movement. Aunt looked at these eyes in a daze, tears uncontrollably gushing from her eyes. She smiled, the wrinkles on her face blooming like flowers, and in her 40s, she smiled like a child. Is it blurry? Do you have ghosting? Does it hurt? Will it still sting when exposed to light? No, neither. Aunt. Lynch raised the corner of his mouth and reached out to untie the black satin on his eyes. His extremely beautiful eyes slowly opened, and I was really good. Aunt. Okay. Our family's karaoke has finally made it. Aunt Sonkai spent 7 nights wiping away her tears and laughing, saying, 一順 of karaoke, it's time for Aunt to go to work. When Aunt comes back tonight, buy more glorious and celebrate. 一順 of. Thank you, Aunt. In 10 years, Lynch had never seen her show such a smile. Aunt hastened Lynch into her arms, and Lynch could clearly feel that her body was trembling slightly. Aunt quickly walked down the stairs, tears still uncontrollably sliding down her cheeks. She wiped her face and walked with unprecedented lightness. Lynch watched his aunt leave and turned around with red eyes, entering the room. So, the aunt is leaving first, so you can go to school. So, he simply pulled out the FL, tore it apart, and threw it into the Pacific Ocean. Just as Lynch turned around, he saw Yanjin standing behind him holding a small black scab, his eyes turning red. In fact, he originally wanted to wait for his aunt to come back tonight and officially announce This matter, but he also realized that people who make such FLS in movies usually have no good ending. He didn't join of to and his aunt to have an accident, even if it was just inexplicable metaphysical logic. He don't join of to take this risk.ol. The sunglass you gave me now can finally come in handy. Lynch stroked Yanjin's head and said with a light smile. Let join of it, brother. We'll have a good meal when my aunt comes back tonight. The two brothers stared at each other for 2 seconds and laughed at the same time. Brother, congratulations. Second middle school. Okay. The little black toad poked its head out of Yanjin's arms and lit Lynch's hand. One are you? Lynchy, WHO had removed the black satin, raised his eyebrows and nodded slightly. When Lynchy walked into the classroom, the whole class quieted down. After a while of confusion, those classmates stared at each other with big eyes, and then someone tentatively spoke. It must be good. He can even see things now. His eyes are so beautiful. After a brief silence, the classroom became noisy again, and the discussion was even more lively than before. How are his eyes doing? The boy WHO was closer to Lynchy, also approached him and asked him a bunch of questions about his eyes. After confirming that Lynchy had indeed recovered, they were all amazed. I could have seen it, but I couldn't join of TC light in my eyes. After going to the hospital yesterday, I recovered. Lynchy answered. Yeah, I didn't join of T realize before that he was so handsome. The girls join of gaze at Lynchy changed. They gathered together and muttered something, glancing at Lynchy from time to time. Liu and lowered his head in the corner and glanced at Lynchy with residual light. His face extremely awkward. He clearly remembered that day when he was busy running for his life. He forcefully hit Lynchy. After escaping from sanction, he felt that Lynchy, a blind man, could not escape from the monster's hands. Also he felt guilty for a while. He didn't join of T take it too seriously. The classmate suddenly realized that Lynchy was indeed absent for a day yesterday. And in this noisy classroom, only 2 people acted out of place. For a moment, Liu Yuan couldn't join of T explain what his mood was. Awkward. Guilt. Depression. Or regret. Also Lynchy turned his back to Liu Yuan. The other person's brilliant expression was clearly perceived by his spiritual perception, and his eyes gradually narrowed. What he didn't join of the expect was that it was Jianchan WHO, and Lynchy, WHO was least favored by him, actually survived, and the eyes are okay. At this moment, another person walked up to Lynchy. He was standing at Lynchy's table at a loss, his expression somewhat awkward. He looked around and lowered his body in Lynchy's ear, saying, 7 nights, . Can you come out with me for a moment? I have something to say. Lynchy only hesitated slightly and nodded.